Hey everybody, my name is Jay, and this is I the Samurai, coming back to you with another match from Bonus Round 2023, one of the, if not the biggest tournament of the year, at least regards to unique international competition. Today we have Toothpaste as our special guest, going over their match against Nekoyogi in Winners Finals. Hello, Toothpaste.
Hello, everybody.
Toothpaste is here, and we're going to be talking about Haohmaru versus Zhanghua right off the bat. One of the major reasons why I have multiple videos coming out with regards to video analysis of Bonus Round is because of the Japanese presence. We don't really get to see them all that much. We surely don't really get to see them all that much against American players anymore. Even when the game was significantly more popular, we didn't really get to see it all that much. And we saw Nekoyogi win EVO Japan playing kind of a wonky tournament at EVO Japan. This is the first time that we got to see them in a traditional type tournament. And so, what did you find to be the major difference from the typical people that you play against in American tournaments versus the Japanese players? And was there something unique about Nekoyogi that separated him from the other Japanese players as well?
It's kind of like a tale of extremes.
Mm.
I got to the casual that we had like the day before on like 3 hours of sleep, two of them being on the plane, and then an hour nap at my hotel. And I was very tired, but I got there. I started playing everybody. I mostly didn't have issues. I didn't play Kami Zone during the casuals. I played K-Chan. I played somebody else. I'm forgetting their name right now. And then I played Nekoyogi. I played my friend Ryan, some other players. And like, when you think of the American meta game, a lot of it revolves around like how do I reduce the interaction to the point where it feels like it's the most in my favor and I can just press buttons, you know what I mean? Or do absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah, especially with Haohmaru, I would imagine there's a lot of defensive playstyle that is typical for Haohmaru as a character.
Yeah, it leans a lot more into the doing nothing and making my opponent make a mistake just because I'm poking them so much. But like Americans in general, it feels like if you play a player like Insigniate, for example, and they're playing Ivy, right? It's like I am going to zone you, but when I feel confident, I'm going to go in, and this moment is going to be hard to react to, and you have to guess, right? Like you just have to hold it. I have the advantage. Like this is very much not your turn, right?
It's like a forced mix kind of situation, yeah.
Yeah, essentially. So Japanese players, they're in the opposite end of the spectrum, right? So I played K-Chan, I played Nekoyogi in casuals, and the initial impression I got from K-Chan is just like this guy kind of doesn't like want to do anything. You know what I mean? He wants to. They move very cleanly, of course, right? But he wants to move cleanly. He wants to punish you, and then he wants to take like his advantage after the punish.
Try to roll with it, some level of momentum, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't want to roll with attacking first. Their big thing is like it feels like they never attack first, you know? And then when I kind of figured out, like, even though he has his advantage, he's kind of still scared to take it. So he does lots of like pump fakes, right? He does like B cancels and like
K cancels are always very typical for Mitsu players and stuff, yeah.
Like even on his Oki, and I'm just gonna mash on you, you know? So it wasn't too big of a deal. I didn't really feel like I was not unconfident against him, but he definitely had a unique playstyle that's like a little more defined because of where he's from. And then Nekoyogi is on like the very far end of that spectrum, I guess we'll say, right? Where they kind of take it to the extreme, kind of like Utoto, I guess, but we'll go into that later. He plays in a way where, number one, he doesn't want to attack first. Number two, he doesn't want to do anything. Number three, everything is clean defensive movement, and it's kind of like to not. He doesn't want to like I'm -4, right? So if I step here, I'm going to eat this I-16 counter hit tool, right? He doesn't do that at all.
He doesn't take any of those types of guesses. He just straight up lets situations dissipate kind of on their own accord without any kind of initiative on his own part.
Yeah, it's very very passive, and a lot of it is just not doing anything. And I think with a character like Zhanghua, when you have very solid play, you have very defensive play, it rewards you a lot. You know what I mean? And like it makes sense in its own end of the spectrum. And I was thinking about it this morning, and it's kind of like there's not really a whole lot of ways to fight that because when you're taking it to the extreme level that he has it, where it's like it is so solid that it is hard to beat it because of his like fundamentals and his spacing and stuff. Like you have to decide if you want to like go all in or if you want to do the exact opposite. But that being said, I played him in the casuals, and it felt like I was very tired, so I don't feel like I was playing at my best level at the fucking casuals. But I hit him with 2-2A, I hit him with 6B, I hit him with the Halmaro unblockable, and it just felt very comfortable. You know what I mean? You know when you play somebody and you feel like, wow, I can just run my game plan on you, and like because of the way you play, you're not going to do anything about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, was there ever a point before you had played the casuals against Nekoyogi or the other Japanese players, before you gotten used to their type of style, were you ever considering playing Huang as well, or were you coming into bonus round thinking Halmaru all the way?
I was definitely thinking Halmaro all the way, and I did initially was think to myself, like, I'll try Huang in the casuals the day before the tournament, but even versus K-Chan, it was just not working, and it was not the way I wanted to play the game.
Right.
Which is unfortunate because I really like the character.
Yeah. Yeah, Halmaru definitely seems to be the kind of character that where if the idea is to play incredibly defensively and lamely on Nekoyogi's part, it would make sense to go with a character where you're able to fight fire with fire in a way. One would argue, I don't know if you agree with me, but it seems like if there was a way that Changhua won a matchup like this, it would be by utilizing scrappy frames up close and kind of snowballing a certain amount of pressure. But if Nekoyogi isn't going to be pulling that off, and both characters are just going to be at mid-screen / full screen all the time, and we're just doing individual hits, Halmaru actually has the advantage in that regard.
Kind of, yeah. It like on paper it feels that way, but when you fight this guy, it feels like I have to work for 20 damage. You know what I mean? Like
It's
the
that
amount
tight, right?
Like during the winners finals, yeah. Like I think in hindsight, yeah. During the point when I was there, I was not thinking this, but during the match, like I was definitely thinking like, oh my god, I just hit him with AA. Thank God. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like fuck, I finally hit him.
Every inch is such a slog that you have to deal with. It can sometimes feel just like an obstacle course just to like play the game. We don't feel like we're wearing down the life bars. It feels like every inch is just this insurmountable obelisk of defense. But at the same time, like you said, in your training when you were playing casuals against him the previous day, it seemed like you were able to simplify Halmaru's game plan. One of the best characters in the game when it comes to simplifying the game plan to just like a handful of moves. And you got 6B, you got 2-2A, and you've got moving around. And
yeah, like I did that, and I just kind of rolled him during the casuals. I was laughing really hard because I hit him with the unblockable twice. People were watching me do it, and everyone before I played him was telling me like, "Man, this Nekoyogi guy is really fucking good." Yeah. I'm like, "Oh, I'll play him," And it's not like I didn't try Huang.
He was
tried
the person
Huang
to watch for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried Huang. It didn't really work out the way I wanted it to because I realized the way that I described that he plays, And then I played Halmaru, and it was just night and day difference.
Well, all right. Why don't we get into the match? Was there anything? So you had obviously played a handful of matches by this time in the day. This is obviously winners finals. Were you watching any Nekoyogi's matches? Were you just trying to take the things that you were carrying from the casuals that you had played the day before? Was there anything that you were coming into that you wanted to test out the waters with right at the very beginning? Or were you just going into it seeing how the match played out?
It's a little bit of the latter, and also keeping in mind what happened the previous day. I kind of have a pretty insane take, but I'm really bad at paying attention to other people's matches, and
When you're
I
not
usually
playing
just
in them, yeah.
yeah, I usually just focus on my next match. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the way I go into it is like very plain minded. I try to take into consideration like when I sit down, like everything, you know, and not like give myself some what is the word?
You don't want to overthink it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't want to jump the gun, you know. Like
Right.
I have to learn who this person is when I play them, you know.
You don't want to
I had it.
pre-adapt, and you would think to yourself, boy, if I had just gone on cruise control at the very beginning, it frankly would have just come out naturally as the adaptations are required, rather than me trying to figure it out all at the very beginning.
Yeah, like I just try to go as it comes, you know. And I had in mind the things from the previous day, but also I took into consideration I was very tired
Yeah.
when that happened. And that being said, I was pretty confident going in. So
All right, let's take a look. Winners final, so first to 3 games. We're on a stage like this. Is there any particular stage that you're looking for here, or is it? See, it feels like as long as you're not in a very small box, you're gonna feel comfortable on any stage.
if you look at the starting distance on the stage, actually,
Mm-hmm.
if you go back like 5 seconds, pause. Yeah, this is what I want every time.
Yeah, which is something that you can basically create on most stages.
Yeah, almost all of them. The 4 stages don't have it.
Yeah,
So
technically,
it's
Indian
kinda,
port would be radically different too.
yeah, Indian port's a good one. It really depends on the initial stage positioning and how big the map is and how many walls there are. There is only one wall on this map, and Hamora's wall game is atrociously bad, and his wall damage is bad, but his low wall ring out is good, and his ring out is actually not bad at all. It just kind of like if I can get my spacing and if I can not be canned into being by the wall, I'm happy. That's all.
Yeah, it's not necessarily as straightforward. It is kind of particular in terms of how you get ring outs with this character.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2-2A immediately, 2-2K, all of the standard moves, and it's just all going to come down to like how much can you force Nekoyogi to chase. And honestly, it seems like we're really snowballing quite quickly. I mean, you get a counter hit 6-6B, he immediately dashes forward into another 6-6B combo, and then he mashes again. So he really doesn't feel comfortable right off the bat, and that was one of the things that I always say about Hamara, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, one of the biggest weaknesses that I find the character has is that he's not particularly sticky. He gets a certain amount of damage off of his momentum, but it dissipates pretty quickly, as opposed to a lot of other characters that are able to string attack into attack into attack, and as long as they keep being right, it never feels like they ever have to stop. Maru does have to stop, but that being said, perhaps I'm wrong about that, considering what we just saw in the first few seconds of the game.
It just kind of depends on how your opponent's interacting with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know this guy was uncomfortable the previous day. I know that when I sit down in my chair and I fight him with this character, he's uncomfortable. So all I have to do is poke him and walk away.
I honestly can't remember the last time I saw a Japanese Haomaru player, so I can see that as well. And you just decide to take a bet at the very end to try and solidify the round, which makes sense.
Yeah. There's Dechi in Japan, but I don't see him playing anymore.
Yeah, I don't know him. And you're seeing like a -12 punish. Were you very happy to see a punish like this on 2-2-AB on block?
I mean, I think it was better than getting anything else. But that being said, like this is probably one of the weaker punishes in the game.
Yeah. Whenever it's like a punish like that, and I think to myself, all I have to be worried about is something like that, then great. I don't have to really worry about much. Yeah, we're doing a lot of 6-6B stuff. It doesn't really seem like Nekoyogi is fully comfortable. Man, 6-6BK is just rocking him. Okay, that was 2-2K into 2A. He just is whiffing 4-4A in a lot of these spots.
Yeah, I kind of was just looking off of the whiff punish. 2-2K is one of these pokes that you use with this character where your entire goal is to just gauge the reaction and get information.
Yeah.
You don't care if it hits or not.
What kind of reactions are you hoping for? Just basically exactly what Nekoyogi is doing, where he's
literally exactly what he did. So 2-2K is 0 on block. So if he 2A's there, I blow him up every time. I can walk backwards, and I have enough time to walk backwards, box step, and buffer 6-6B, which is one of my better whiff finishers because it goes to CE. I can jump over his 2A with my 4-4K and get a lethal hit. Like 2A in there is actually the worst thing you can do. Because it's a low, like a special low,
Yeah, I honestly wonder what the best option for Zhanghua in that spot is. Obviously, 4-4A isn't working. I guess it would be 6-6A, but honestly, it'd probably just be best to just not do anything at all.
Yeah, not doing anything, but also her full crush 3A is pretty good.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest weaknesses that I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about when it comes to Zhanghua. It's just the fact that there are certainly a lot of spots with Zhanghua where her range keeps her from being able to do much about certain spaced out options that other characters have. Decides to spend bar on a spot like this. Very surprising. Now, I already know the answer to this, but did you have any expectations of playing Zhanghua players at bonus round in particular? Did you practice for this matchup specifically at all?
Yeah, I definitely thought about it. I believe we went over a session that was kind of hinted at, but I wanted to practice for Zef Zhanghua, which I never ended up fighting, and I definitely mentally prepared myself to fight Incendiate, which never ended up happening.
Yeah.
And I had some ideas of how to go into fighting her, but I fought a completely different player who played in a completely different way. So
yeah, it always sucks whenever you're dealing with a character like that. It's a Zhanghua minefield, but the fact that the character can be played in such radically different ways, especially when it comes to international competition, it almost makes it difficult to reap the rewards at all of dealing with a character you're used to playing against all the time.
Yeah, it's so different.
You can see Nekoyogi still trying his dead level best to not whiff anywhere near as much. Doing a lot of 4B post 2-2-AB, but haven't really seen something that we talked about before, that I've seen in this matchup before, is Zhanghua's punish on 2-2-AA seems to be pretty good. And so far, I don't believe he's blocked a single one of them. He seems to be much more comfortable dealing with one side of the mix-up than the other one. Was that going through your head, or did that just happen to happen there?
Mostly, it was for me. I'm thinking he's getting hit by the low constantly. Eventually, he's going to want to duck.
Yeah.
And I just mix it up because he's not GIing it yet.
Yeah, no GIs. It seems like just the raw, just straight-up mix seems to be enough. Fantastic whip punish there. No just frames, though, so it's significantly less impressive. Okay, so we're actually getting some GIs here. This is one of the things that we see from people who are much more comfortable with Haohmaru. Things like 6B on hit into Warrior's Focus, or your 2-2-A strings, or 2-2-K on block, seeing like the GI. How often do you find you're dealing with people who are comfortable against Haohmaru to this extent, where they're actually dealing with the strings in an appropriate manner?
It isn't very often, but also, like, so I said 2A is a bad answer, but he could react to the stance with 2A here.
Yeah,
if you GI and I do nothing, you eat. So I have 80 damage because I'm in soul charge right now. All I gotta do is press a button.
It just doesn't really happen all that much that you even get to the second level of Yomi, so to speak, when you're playing against Haohmaru.
I think he kind of is just. I don't think it has to necessarily do with the matchup, but how he wants to like fight against me. Like for him, this is a defensive win, and that's kind of like what it felt like. He's just like, I don't know what I'm dealing with. Get this character away from me, GI.
Yeah.
Like rather than the impression, it's like, oh, this is a plus on block stance transition, right? So my best option is to GI, but his best option is not to GI. You just 2A the stance on reaction.
So interesting. You actually saw this, and you were reading desperation rather than preparation. You were reading that this was just simply a way to, in a panic, stop what was happening at the moment so that he could go back to playing his game, rather than like, oh, I'm adapting to what's happening to me, I'm prepared for this situation.
Yeah, this did not feel like any kind of preparedness.
He does have a lot of bar. I do appreciate using meter early. I appreciate using meter early with Haomaru on the last round when you have 2 bars, and I appreciate using meter early against Xianghua when she has 2 bars at the end of the game, and this is something that I find a lot of people do not do appropriately against Xianghua, is using meter very quickly. A lot of people complain about Shanghua's meter game. Rightfully so, the CE is the best CE in the game, but a lot of Xianghua players, Nekoyogi included, tend to hold on to that meter for such a long time to the point where they do not use Soul Charge the way that a lot of other people do. And if you use Soul Charge against Xianghua in the typical fashion, which is to say, like a comeback mechanic, then your meter will feel bad. Everybody here, I'm sure, has been in that situation where Xianghua is on top of you, and you just feel like you have to Soul Charge to get her off of you. And by then, you're in yellow life, meaning you're dead to a C, and so it honestly doesn't even feel like you're a Soul Charge character. It doesn't feel like you get to have your run-of-the-mill type of momentum. Meanwhile, if you had done it while you were in blue life at the beginning of a round, then Xianghua is not going to feel comfortable using their meter the way that other characters do. Typically speaking, when you spend your Soul Charge, your opponent's going to spend Soul Charge back. Xianghua doesn't want to do that. Xianghua wants to just keep meter for her CEs. And so because of that, you can actually get one of 2 things to happen. You can either be a Soul Charge character against a non-Soul Charge character, which is great, or Xianghua will spend Soul Charge back, in which case it's Xianghua's Soul Charge. It's not particularly great, and it goes by very quickly. And you're not going to have to deal with that CE in the future. It's a piece of anti-Xianghua that I feel is not necessarily exercised all that much in this community so far.
And that's all stuff that we talked about during our session.
Yeah. Oh boy, the air hit.
That was really unfortunate. Yeah, I wanted to leap a hit, and I knew he was going to get hit by it, and it was.
It's just so scary, at least to me as an Amy player, whenever something works in a way where you end up getting an air hit and the scramble, especially when you are a slower character. As a character is getting up, because you're playing a slower character and having to take the time, the mental frame advantage, so to speak, to register that the move hit in the air as opposed to on the ground, it always makes it... I always get worried in those types of scrambles. I always feel like I'm going to fall apart in one way or another.
Can you pause it for a second and go back to the player cam?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So I watched this guy play other people, okay? He does not get this red fighting other people. He gets like the glow, you know, when he gets like flustered. That was something I kind of observed.
Interesting. Yeah. When you're seeing that somebody's getting flustered in this way, how does it change your playstyle?
I get really happy.
Yeah, sure.
For me, when I have successfully frustrated my opponent, I have accomplished what I needed to do. So like, I have it under their skin that I'm gonna get to them, and like they're unsure of their decision making. So I have more options available. That's kind of what goes through my head. Do
you find yourself getting into a more offensive stance or a defensive stance? Does it depend on the matchup and stuff?
It depends on what happened with the player. It's always depending on how I gauge the reactions. With this guy, it's like he is flustered and he's trying to find an answer, and I'm not going to give him one.
Yeah, whenever I get into a spot like this, I play it obviously a radically different character than Haomaru, and so when somebody gets flustered against me, it is typically because they are simply not being correct about mix-ups. And so what I tend to do, just me personally, is that I actually let up on mix-ups more often than not. I remove the thing that is frustrating them first, because I want the fact that they are flustered to come out in a way where they are desperate to not be put into those mix-up situations anymore. They go for GIs more often, they go for immediate like uppercut type moves, reversal edges, all that kind of stuff. And so I just won't even put themselves in that position, and then I sprinkle it back in at the end of rounds when they're already tense. So I try to like sprinkle it in that way. With Haomaru, I can imagine, considering the fact that your mid-low mix-up is pretty weak, it's not necessarily the same kind of thing.
It's more kind of just like the frying pan reaction, right? Where people have like this pain stressor, and they're like, that hurt. I don't want to touch that shit again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they're constantly thinking about it. They're avoiding it. You know, kind of like how they avoid the mix-ups. But for him, he's kind of just like, man, like this 2-2A is like really frustrating. I can't get in. Like I want to be able to do something, and I'm getting stressed out, and I need to be able to do something about it. And for me, it's just like, I guess I double down sometimes, and I do it more, or I see that they're flustered and see that they're looking for it, and I run like you said, a completely different option. I think for me, I started doing throw. Like he was looking for the 2-2A, and then I just dash up and throw him.
Yeah. That's one of the very nice things. One of the craziest things about Haohmaru is that it's not just the fact that his spacing game is like tip top. It's not the fact that his backdash gets him out of most situations. It's also the fact that his forward dash rivals Talem's in terms of speed. So he also has the ability to basically teleport right up to you as all you're thinking about, and all you can think about is the fact that Haohmaru is so far away from you. And so he can also just immediately get in kind of at will, which is really rough.
Yeah, he has some jump scare, definitely.
Ooh, heavy slash.
I was trying to counter him.
Right. So when it comes to like the wall pressure, when you don't have the ability to backdash, what is your typical game plan when you're dealing with such a sticky character like Xianghua? Like how do you get out of spots like this with Haohmaru?
I kind of run it by 3 steps. The first step, do I have a bar to soul charge? If I do, I soul charge.
Sure.
If I don't have a bar to soul charge, I wait for them to do a minus on hit or block move, and then I sidestep. If that doesn't happen, and they're not doing that, and they're kind of like more patiently controlling their ground, then I do a move that has pushback on block, and I mash like 6-6B or 2B 204K.
Okay. Yeah, so very similar to, I did an Eye of a Samurai quite some time ago at this point with Skill, who had a very similar game plan in the sense of, like, specifically doing moves for the purpose of creating pushback, just so that you can either backdash away or circle around once you're in this kind of stage positioning.
Yeah, you could see I took a step immediately after E2KP.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so an immediate GI off of 6-6B now. This is another GI situation that was not happening in the previous game. Now, I can't remember, actually, how many times he actually blocked 6-6B in the previous round. So perhaps he didn't have an opportunity to establish that this is a thing that he could do. Does this, similarly to what you were talking about in the first game, does this lead you to believe that he is continuing to be desperate, or do you find that this is actually a certain level of preparation that he did with the character?
This is a little more leaning into, I think, necessarily his playstyle as a player. If he takes this move on block, it's good for me,
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't want to let anything that's good for me happen by making a defensive decision. But also, this is kind of like, this is hard to gauge because when it comes to this character, I can name on one hand how many people GI after 6-6B.
Yeah.
So, and it's very hard. Like, it's actually really hard to do.
And it's also the matter of, correct me if I'm wrong, if Haohmaru is correct, does 6-6B on block, and reads that the opponent's going to GI, you can hit him pretty hard for that.
I can literally cancel into my A+B and do, like, 100 damage.
Yeah, but even if you don't go for that heavy of a read, even if you just do 6-6B on block and wait for the GI, you could probably hit him pretty hard for that, too.
Yeah, I could just do 6-6B and then 6-6B. I could do 6-6B and heavy slash. There's an infinite many amount of options.
So it's a huge amount of risk to throw out a GI like this as well.
Yeah, it carries a lot of risk for me trying to poke you. Like that's the main takeaway when I play this character. It's just like, what is it that my opponent is doing to mitigate my poking that is creating an opening? And this is one of those things. But I don't think I take advantage of it until like way later.
Oh, okay.
Because it's really hard to gauge that one.
Yeah.
Because some people, they have the reaction or they love the matchup and they know to deal with it that way, And
it just straight up doesn't happen very often. Like we were talking about before in the first game, basically all the 6-6Bs connected. So there wasn't any reason to believe that it was going to be any different later on.
Yeah.
Good punish. Yeah, stuff like that. You're using 6-6B as a whip punish for the most part, not necessarily as a poke to beat out somebody trying to, duck a grab or something. He's getting much more aggressive at the wall, which is not surprising. That is a very typical thing in a matchup like this.
It was definitely something I had prepared for somebody else to get aggressive at the wall for me.
Right. Nice punish. Obviously, we're in that ever-terrifying portion where you're dead to Zhanghua CE.
Yeah, I'm just kind of doing things, and then I run up throw him because he's looking for me to zone him, and he's looking for a punish, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
this is definitely the time to do it, seeing as how we basically did not have any run-up anything, let alone run-up throw, for the first full game, and then this. Ooh, la-di-da. Again, you keep assuming that he's eventually going to start. Yeah, I was going to say, like, you keep assuming that he's going to start eventually blocking low, seeing as how every 2-2A hit. And it was kind of what we were talking about before we started looking at the match, where it's just like, don't overanalyze, don't pre-adapt to the opponent. It's just a matter of like, well, he's not ducking 2-2AA literally at all, so I guess I might as well keep going with it.
Yeah, just wrong in the mix-up.
Getting some run counters, infinite more 2-2AAs, makes sense. And this is exactly what you were talking about before. He is still very adamant about pressing post 2-2K on block. And I guess with a character like this, with a character as stubby as Zhanghua, they would need to have a specific move set up for exactly what they want to do when 2-2K gets blocked. They can't just simply throw out a move the way that, I don't know, probably like a more mid-range character like a Geralt or a Nightmare or something like that would be able to pull off.
She kind of has to make a decision.
Yeah.
Full couch 3K will lethal hit my 4-4K. 2A will beat the stance. Doing nothing doesn't beat anything, technically.
2-2A at the very least just resets the situation. Man, look at how mad he is, dude.
Yeah, he's very
so
frustrated.
mad right now.
He's very frustrated. He's trying to deal with the 2-2A. I hit him with it 3 times.
Yeah.
Right before this, right? And he's like, man, I don't want to get hit by this fucking move, you know? I'm just infinitely frustrating him with my poking game.
That was basically like the one situation in this entire game where you were not fully in control was right here, where like you almost got 3B'd to death.
Yeah, I almost died.
That was terrifying. I don't think if you had blocked the 3B and punished it, I don't think you could have killed. So probably best to do what you had done, which is just like circle around afterwards.
I thought about that too in that moment. Actually, I remember thinking to myself, like, I could punish this, but I'm getting the fuck out of here.
especially
fuck this
especially after 2-2K whiffs. It's just so scary, and you're at so much life, there's just no reason. You're not a character that's going to win on a mix-up. Because what's going to happen if you get, like, the absolute optimal punish? You're going to get a 6-6K, and then you've put yourself in a position where you either attack or not, which leaves him the option to potentially GI or not. And if he's right about the GI, then you're in a 50-50 for your life. Because of the wall situation, and that just sucks. Like, why even do that?
Yeah, I'm essentially just putting myself back into the same situation I did want to be in, so...
Why do you think he decided to keep the stage the first time, but not this time? Do you think he's just looking for something to refresh, or do you think he's actually looking for a more optimal stage?
I think he's... So the way he was playing earlier, he's getting poked, walking in. He's looking for somewhere with smaller starting distance, like this stage. On like a smaller map that leaves me less room to walk around, because he's just so frustrated, you know? He's looking for the 2-2A. If you go back, actually, it's kind of important. Yeah, you start to notice players right here. Pause. Like right.
So because
right
he's doing that little teabag motion, you can tell that he's effectively trying to beat out the 2-2A, not necessarily with a tech crouch move, but just straight up to crouch.
If you look, he did wall rising B preemptively, right? Like he is specifically now looking for that move, and he's trying to preemptively duck it and hit me before the second hit comes out, you know? Because I've been letting the second hit rip, which is just enough information to tell me, like, he is now frustrated of my horizontal, right? So I can 6B more.
So that's the idea, is that now that you're able to do that, he's not going to be step ducking all that much, and you're going to get more verticals. You're going to be able to do 6B.
Yep.
4-4K to potentially beat out that duck that we were saying.
Yeah, it was kind of a read.
Aha! So that one duck into a preemptive wall rising B actually affected your playstyle pretty significantly. Because we weren't really seeing 4-4K at all, and we weren't seeing you cancel the 2-2A stance at all before either. So you were really trying to pick up on what Nekoyogi was trying to lay down at the very beginning of this potential last game, right?
Yeah, I try to pick up what he was putting down. Like, I try to read things as they go, you know? Adaptation is hard for me sometimes, but I'm getting a lot better at it. And when it comes to when it comes to playing a character like Haomaru, I can water the gameplay. Like, my gameplay on this character is so watered down and simplified that I have enough room to think about what's going on in the match instead of what's going on between my character and his character. It's more of like impressions and like how he's doing things as a person, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's always nice when you're able to limit a moveset to such a degree that you can focus it purely on the player. And make reads that other people who do very fancy stuff just don't necessarily get the time even to put in attention to resources to try and figure that kind of thing out. For the first times that we're actually seeing Fullcraft 3A, we're also noticing, or at least I'm noticing, he is now actually leaning on the fact that you're not punishing 3B. Haomaru doesn't really get a particularly fantastic punish in that regard, but was that something that you were noticing as well, where before he was not really jamming 3B all that much, now he seems to be doing it pretty consistently?
Yeah, it's I get a single K, which is like 0 or +2 on it,
Yeah.
so, and I usually just opt to do something different, so I think he might have lent on it a little more, maybe.
Is this something where, like, if you find your Zhanghua opponent is leaning on the fact that Haomaru's small frame block punishment isn't all that strong, what is your typical adaptation for something like that? Is that just simply something you have to eat and that's just the way it is?
It just kind of depends on the move they're doing. A lot of the times, though, it's literally just this move, so I just sidestep.
Okay.
My gameplay doesn't change around how I have to play around her because she's doing 3B, you know?
A lot of 3B now. Okay, so it looks like for the second time in a row, we're actually seeing a GI post 6-6B. It was just kind of lucky that the 6-6B ended up whiffing, and Haomaru, I think, is like the only character in the game that has this weird tick that he is unable to continue his strings on whiff.
Yeah, because they count as like a 2D cancel.
Yeah,
where you can only
yeah.
do them on header block, so...
Fantastic whiff punish. We get a pretty solid amount of damage. Ahaha. One of the only types of tricks that Haomaru has at the wall, and la-di-da.
Yeah.
I mean,
I hit him with the same setup
never
yesterday.
assume that somebody knows, right?
Nah, I know he didn't know.
Especially in a spot like that, it is so hard to get away from if you're not familiar with it. Technically speaking, even I don't interact with that unblockable appropriately, because the obvious counterplay is that you're supposed to stay on the ground, but I never do. I do exactly what Nekoyogi does, but then I see the animation of it, and I just RI instead. When I don't have the meter for an RI on that kind of unblockable, I just kind of like throw up my hands and I'm like, oh, right, well, I guess I die. And that's just the way it is.
Guess I'll die then.
Nowadays,
Yeah.
people like Jimbo will do the unblockable cancel, and it legitimately works on me because I'm in my head about like how I'm supposed to interact with this unblockable. But yeah, really showing how Nekoyogi is very uncomfortable in a matchup like this. Were you hitting anybody else in the tournament with the Haomaru unblockable?
I think I hit one other person during a set with the unblockable, during my pools run.
But do you
But
find
also-
that the American players that give you trouble, are they familiar enough with the unblockable, or does it still work on them pretty
The
well?
way that they play makes it harder to use it because they're just more liable to like mash at me. You know what I mean?
Right.
The way he's playing is like if
You
he
get a
wakes
ton
up,
of opportunities for it, yeah.
yeah, like he just wants to be safe, and it's like you can no longer be safe. Like I am going to hit you. What are you going to do? You know what I mean?
It's always very interesting how the Japanese deal with situations that happen in SE6, which are literal forced mixes. You simply cannot do anything about it. You cannot play them safely. I have chosen an Omega level option of just like, no, this is just the way it is, and you can't do anything about it, and what are you going to do? That's why I'm very curious how Nekoyogi or some of the other Japanese players would deal with Amy, considering the fact that I don't really see them deal with Amy all that often. Or as well, we've seen Blue have a pretty solid amount of success playing as well against the Japanese players as well. Characters that have a ton of forced mix.
Yeah, they have a very significant way of just not playing into those things and just eating mix up.
Obviously important to note, the 6-6BK ends up working, but we do see impact counter. So it's not that it actually changed, he just happened to mistime his GI.
It's a frame per. So the other moves that I can do off 6-6B you have a little bit more leeway to GI. When I do 214K with a gourd swing, that shit's frame perfect.
Yeah, I guess
really hard.
it would be slightly different GI timing between 6xBK and 6xB 214K.
Yeah, like you have to have immediate recognition that you just blocked the move, versus like, I just finally blocked it. The move's coming out against GI,
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. The weakness to 6xB 214K is sidestep, right?
You can't sidestep it at all.
No?
Like,
Okay.
This is literally a 2-frame gap, safe on block, poke. Like, how do I explain it? I'm combining the moves, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So where like 6xB is my whiff punish tool, when I do this, it becomes my zoning tool.
Yeah, it does a pretty good amount of guard damage too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, this does like at least 20.
I think it's like
20%.
basically anything with the gourd for some reason does a good amount of guard damage.
But yeah, basically I just stick out this really big mid that's hard to deal with and pushes you way the fuck away from me.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to GI.
God, he still has not dealt with 2-2-AA literally at all. It's only been 2-2-AB.
Yeah.
What are you looking for when it comes to... when you're in Soul Charge, I find that a lot of how Mario players rely on the Quake. Are you looking to potentially jank out Nekoyogi? Are you looking to feel out exactly what their response time is going to be? Or are you trying to just play with how Maru's Soul Charge straight? Just like a straight up clean type of way, but you're just in Soul Charge.
I think in this moment, that is what I did. Sometimes I use the Earthquake Slash, the big jumping move that is huge to do ship damage with the tornadoes. But versus Nekoyogi, the way I gauge the game is that, like, once I go into Soul Charge, like, I want to hit you. If you present me any single opening to hit you, I'm going to try it.
So you're looking for potentially something like what we're seeing on screen right now. You're looking for a whiff punish opportunity for your uppercut.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking for, like, a whiff punish opportunity.
Because obviously, like, one of, like, the lowest common denominator type things with how Maru is gauging whether the opponent knows how to GI the fireball. And I guess it's fairly safe to assume, seeing as how Nekoyogi's desperation and or counterplay has been GI so much. Like, he's been GIing in so many other places, too. So it's reasonable to believe, without him demonstrating it, that a GI is already on his mind when dealing with the fireball. Now, the other strings and everything, who knows?
Yeah. That is what is on his mind.
I didn't see any green, so the first time, I think, in the set that we've actually seen a 2-2-AA get blocked and punished. Oh, decides to be greedy with it? Does not spend the bar. Oh, man, you're not dead to a crybaby, so yeah, you just immediately go in. No GIs there. That's an interesting take. Oh, interesting. Yeah, 1K on hit into 4-4A, he's not going to be able to box away, huh?
Mm-mm. I was unfortunate spacing in my end.
I like the fact that, so again, in that last round, we saw like the first 2-2-AA on block, and you're immediately like, I don't believe you.
Yeah, I'm like jamming this.
No. Pretty distinct meter disadvantage, but as is typically the case with Japanese players, they really don't use their meter all that often, and so they just typically have 2 bars most of the game.
Yeah, they're a little bit more nervous with their meter usage. They play
stringent
more
and frugal. I can't really understand why, to be honest. I feel like that has been a knock against the Japanese players ever since Soul Calibur 6 started.
I think it just has to do with the way they approach the game, Like, he wants it for this. He wants it for, like, big punishes. He wants it for, like, when he wins an interaction. He doesn't want to use it to start the interaction.
Was there ever a thought to using Soul Charge aggressively in a spot like this? Where, like, so this grab happens, right? And then technically his stage positioning is not really all that great, so you could have potentially rolled forward or just gotten up and just immediately Soul Charged. But do you feel like that might be a good use of your time or not, considering the fact that we are talking about potentially pressuring Zhanghua when you're dead to a CE?
Yeah, like I don't feel very good about my pressure here, and I don't feel very good about soul charging him against the wall here, because all it takes is 1-2 to be. What was going through my head is I'm about to die. I die to his next CE. He's liable to do it. He could run out to 2B. He has like Oki on his throw. Like the best thing I can do is get up, eventually get a spacing that I like again and try to whiff punish him.
So yeah, very similar to Ivy gameplay, where the number one thing is space, even more important than life total.
Yeah, and a lot of it's more mid-range spacing.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah, now it feels like you're kind of forced to.
Yeah, I was in my head, I was like, I get the bar back anyways, whatever. You know what I mean?
Okay, more GIs. We know that if there's an opportunity for a GI, that's what he's going to do.
Yes.
It can be kind of difficult to figure out exactly when to... It's not like see the fireball, then GI the fireball. It's like, honestly, it depends on like the spacing you're working with. And yeah, like you talked about, a lot more 6-6B into 2-1-4K as opposed to before. I'm surprised that doesn't give you the lethal hit.
Yeah, I thought that too. when I did the lethal hit combo, I just buffered that shit. I was so sure it was going to hit him.
Don't think you've been right about virtually any grabs, which also kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's only whiffing that one part of the string. And this is exactly what Nekoyogi was trying to set up ever since he started just throwing out errant 3Bs. Because now we're dead to the Oki here, too.
Yeah, he wants to catch my backstep with that 3B. He does not like it.
Right. So, the first round loss, first game loss, that is, what are the kinds of things that you're looking for? The main adaptation that I'm seeing from Nekoyogi I've already talked about, where now he is feeling much more comfortable doing a lot of 3Bs. Were you looking at anything else?
I think I was thinking about the 2-way situation. I was mostly thinking about like his movement, you know, and his choices of how he was trying to contain me, because he's really tired of like my backstep. He's really tired of like the way I was playing, and also the way that I was playing was starting to get greedier, you know. So I kind of needed to just like I was going for more 2-way. I was going for more throws. I was going for more soul charge, right? And that's shit that I wasn't even doing in the first place, you know. So I gave it some time to think. I trolled the audience. I trolled the Twitch chat.
None of us believe you, by the way.
I bet, right?
There's no way in hell.
Yeah. I thought it would be fun, but I was not there to... I was there to win. I wanted to be there, you know?
No fun. Anybody who watches this YouTube video, anybody in my Twitch chat at the moment, please understand that at this level, no one is having fun with Soul Calibur at all. We are only about winning Soul Calibur.
I'm definitely not having fun fighting this guy.
Yeah.
Versus anybody else I've ever played.
Sure.
I mean, the game is fun, yes, but fighting him is like...
No.
You are not allowed to have fun.
No.
Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Literally everybody from Japan are the least fun people in the world. It is if you were to take the rankings, it is how many people live in Japan? Like probably like 10 million or something like that. It is a 10 million way tie for least fun person in the world. Officially ranked. So you end up getting a stage that I can imagine you very much did not want to get.
I'm actually pretty happy with this stage.
Oh, really? Why is that?
It's very big.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess that's the case, yeah.
It has no walls.
Oh, if only.
That's what I was looking for, too.
Yeah.
I didn't get what I wanted off of it.
And the 4-4A was just a little bit too much.
Yeah.
That's too bad. So we ended up slipping through the fingers. Not really a crybaby Nekoyogi, right? Like, not really a Zhanghua player who uses crybaby all that much, despite the fact that that is something that we typically see from a lot of American Zhanghua players, huh?
He doesn't really use it, no. And a lot of the stuff that I do, it just beats crybaby, so...
What kind of stuff does Haomaru have that's specific to beating Zhanghua crybaby?
The DP Oki, you know, like the uppercut thing. It's just you just do heavy slash and it just makes her explode. So.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. When you have such a hard hit for a punish, I guess that's the way to go.
Yeah.
One of the first times that we're actually seeing 2-2K on block into stance pressure. We're not trying to give him an opportunity. You felt like you had done enough conditioning to where he wasn't going to match again?
I think I just felt it in the moment that it was the right decision, you know?
Meters virtually equal. He is getting a lot of momentum off of having you up against the wall. I feel like that has been the case. Well, up against the edge of the ring. I feel like that's been the case in both of these rounds. You were going for like a ring out opportunity with the 2B. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, beating the mash and beating the duck. If there's a way to get how Maru's Soul Charge to work, it's there.
Yeah, that was a moment where he just had to block.
Okay, GIing after 2-2-8, but I think we've talked about it before. Not exactly something that you're that worried about. Good step duck. Nekoyogi with a ton of bar. And actually doing a lot of backstep into 3B now. Actually taking advantage of any kind of aggressive style that you got going on now.
Yeah, he's definitely switched it up.
Sheesh. And that's what's going to happen when you're dealing with when you're playing a character that does not really get a heavy block punishment, right?
Yeah, that and like it catches my backstep at -6.
Yep.
It's a smart decision on his part. That's the kind of thinking that I think that overall, that kind of like level of thinking, like that kind of math they do, is just always present in their mind. You know, he does not know that's -12 amount.
Yeah, neither did I. I mean, how often do you actually block that, right? Now we're actually getting into 4-4-8 kind of strengths. We're seeing like what the option is there. Man, if only you had gotten some of the punishes on these GIs. You were 100% right, and then we just didn't. We weren't able to execute the appropriate punish.
Yeah, it's hard. My reactions are.
Well, it's also it's just also the fact that like how often does it happen? And there you just get snaked. That seemed it seemed fast enough to me at the very least.
Yeah, I definitely 100% thought, oh, he just whipped. I can do this here.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's gonna ring him out. That was it. But nope.
Oh, what did Boom end up telling you here?
So this is funny as fuck. Okay, go ahead and pause it. All right. Let me word for word. Okay, Boom comes over here. He's like, "What's up, bro? How you doing?" I'm like, "I'm doing good." You know. He's like, "How you feeling, man?" I'm like, "I feel good." He's like, "Good." You know. He's like, "All you need to do is just believe in yourself. Okay. You're walking up there. You look really uncomfortable. You know. You're playing fine. The way you played in the beginning was fine. You just need to play the way that you feel comfortable doing instead of being so unconfident." You know. I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." Right. One of the things I talked to about Boom, literally prior to this set, like 15 minutes prior to this set, because I went to bonus round the previous year, and I got knocked out by Boom and Zeph, you know, and it was unfortunate, whatever, but like little different from most people. I am more affected by my feelings in a set than a lot of other people because I have depression. And sometimes I don't want to be there, and it affects my gameplay, and I play worse for it, you know, and not really a whole lot of control I can do. But, you know, I talked to him, and I told him I took a break from the game. I found, like, kind of like my way, you know, and, like, how to, like, be happy and find a way I wanted to be happy in my life, and I pursued it. And that's what I've been doing, you know, and now that, like, I'm at the tournament, like, I actually want to be here, like, last year, I wasn't feeling very great about being in the tournament, but this year I really wanted to be here, and I'm happy I'm here, you know? And I just have, like, a self-esteem issue, and he's like, you know, just believe in yourself, dude, because you got this. It's not like you're playing bad, you know? There's not, like, a whole lot of advice that I can give you. You just need to believe in yourself. Like, you're doing fine. You got... That's literally all he said, you know?
Yeah, if I had to guess why he decided to come up at this point and mention that, I would probably say it's a combination of two things. One, obviously just, regardless of mental state or not, just the template of what's going on. You won the first two games, you're clearly very excited to beat the person who people consider to be the favorite to win the tournament, and then you lost the next two games. Like, clearly the momentum is out of your favor, and anybody in that position is not going to feel particularly stalwart. They're going to feel shaken up by the fact that for one reason or another, their gameplay isn't as effective as it was at the beginning of the set. And I agree with him in the sense of, clearly the options being chosen here are correct. It just happens to be really the only thing that I would say that Nekoyogi is doing that would lead me to believe that he is getting a handle on the matchup is just the fact that he's been using 3B a bunch more. And that's something that an experienced Haumaru player is going to be familiar enough with, that they're not going to completely fall apart simply because a Zhanghua player is doing 3B a bunch, or at least a good Haumaru player shouldn't be worried about that sort of thing. So I can understand why he's saying that. I also feel like the reason why he is saying that is because of the stuff that we had talked about in that previous game, that there were two GI opportunities where GI whiffed and we didn't get any damage. And unfortunately, all it takes is just those two opportunities, especially with a high damage character like Hamaru. All it takes is those two opportunities to dictate the pace of a match. I'm not going to include the time when you tried to whiff punish him with the 2B that would have given you the ring out and he ended up blocking it instead. That sucks, but I didn't get the impression that you were late on it. That's just Soul Calibur being Soul Calibur and faster characters recovering faster than normal. So if I had to guess, that's the reason why Boom has decided that he wants to talk to you about that sort of thing. When it comes to the mental state affecting matches in a fighting game in general, I've always found, and I've talked about this in the past before, when it came to playing competitively as a person who typically is not particularly on our own side, I guess is the best way that I can say it. People often mock the fact that anytime I've gone into a tournament game, I'm going to say like 90% of the time that I go into a tournament match, I go into it assuming I'm going to lose. Now, I don't know if this is something that you've thought about. I don't know if this is something that you think would benefit you. But in case anybody is watching the video and is dealing with the same kind of thing, the way that I try to approach having my negative mental state affecting the way that I play is that I rely on the mechanics of the fighting game itself. The way that I try to deal with the fact that I think I'm going to lose and I think that I don't belong here and imposter syndrome out the yin-yang is I've always understood that when it comes to like an actual fight, like a UFC fight or a boxing fight, those people have to have that kind of high morale because it will actually affect how hard they punch, how quickly they punch, if they're hesitating or if they have low morale. But when it comes to a fighting game, because so much of that is inlaid within the game itself, I found it easier to say whether I think this Amy 4A that I'm about to do, whether I think it's going to work or not, regardless of how I feel confident about this move. It's going to come out in the exact same amount of frames, it's going to tech crouch in the exact same amount of speed, it's going to do the exact same amount of damage, and it's going to put me in the same position on hit or on block that it would whether or not I thought it was going to hit. The fact that I can rely on the mathematics of the game to be consistent throughout, even in a naturally inconsistent game like Soul Calibur, at least regards to hitboxes, that's the way that I always try to get away from mental state affecting my gameplay. Depending on who you talk to, maybe it's worked for me, maybe it's not, but it's always the way that I try to get out of the fact that, more often than not, when I play a tournament match, I assume that I'm going to lose. Even in actual tournament matches where I'm getting mollywopped, the one major tournament that I've won in Soul Calibur 6, it was very close to that not being the case. I was an inch away from losing in pools to somebody totally different. I remember even looking out into the crowd and looking at some of the people that knew me and just kind of like throwing up my shoulders like, yep, it looks like I lost here and it really sucks. It just doesn't seem like I can do anything against what my opponent's throwing at me. And I just simply relied on the math of the match to dictate what I was supposed to do, because it stays the same regardless of whether I think I'm going to win or lose. Whether that works for you or works for anybody else who's watching that, let me know if that's something that people feel is a way to go about
it. To add to that, what I did is I just looked at pictures of my cat and my partner.
Some level of relaxation, yeah.
Yeah, I looked at them and I'm like, I love them so much, and
you
like
just gotta add in those serotonin levels, right?
I know that these people believe in me, right? There are people who do believe in me, and if people can believe in me, then like, who cares if I believe in myself, Yeah,
it's that Gurren Lagann line, right? Believe in me, who believes in you, rather than believing in yourself.
Yeah, it's way easier when you think about it that way.
But overall, you're just thinking of just putting yourself in the same mindset. You don't actually have to change any of the adaptations. Clearly, what you're doing is working. It's working in the sense of you're getting damage out of these spots, and that makes sense. And you are creating those GI whiff punish opportunities that you were hoping to gain. Like, your reads are correct. It's just the execution that needs to change ever so slightly. And as long as you have that, then you should be able to win the day. Now, I would imagine you're relatively happy with this stage?
Yeah, this is like the most balanced stage in the game.
Yeah.
So when I actually lab on this stage, I love this stage.
Yeah. Yeah, this and the fountain, I guess, are kind of like the ones that people consider to be the default. We're clearly taking this very slowly. This is the adaptation that you were looking for in the third game, right? This is what we were seeing is just this preemptive duck into wall rising B. Arguably, he didn't even react to the 2-2-A necessarily.
Nope, he was just looking for anything and then assuming it was going to be 2-2-A.
Yeah. Ah, if only, man. Talking about like huge differences here is just like the amount of like damage that we're potentially getting on these like GI whiffs. It's just the whiff punish opportunities and like how often they go, and then we just decide to say fuck it when we got it.
Yeah, the fuck it definitely worked.
Yeah, especially in regards to like you end up getting like the heavy slash here, which I appreciate because it feels very anti-Crybaby, which at this life total could potentially be a scary thing. And had he gone for Crybaby afterwards, it would have worked. So yeah, I like that sort of thing.
It's also just a part of the combo.
So a bar versus no bar. Do you ever feel like using meter very early against Xianghua in spots like this? That's one of the things that I like to do, but obviously my soul charge is better in a lot of ways.
I feel like yes, but when she hits me and she has significant frame advantage, then I just like, I have a bar, get away from me, bro.
You want to keep it as not necessarily a comeback mechanic, but as a get off me move, like an Ivy would.
Yeah, I really value the strength of using Soul Charge to push people away on Hamaru. Like on other characters, you could argue like Soul Attack is really good because you get your force mix-ups and stuff, but like Hamaru, bro, like the entire point of the character is to create space and with punish people, and this is one of the best tools for it.
Oh man, little teeny tiny Twitch duck. So it really seems again, and now we have another tech route here, so it really seems like 6Bs, 6-6Bs will have a lot more efficacy, at least right here, right now, than they would have even just a handful of seconds ago. It really seems like if there's one way that he's relying on winning, it's with that. And kind of what you were talking about before with regards to like, do a move that is just slightly, I mean, it's not unsafe on block, but it's at least not neutral, and you just immediately like circle around.
Yep. Just get the fuck away.
Really trying to get that wall pressure there. Unfortunately, it was not.
Yeah, this soul charge that was entirely to get the fuck away from the wall. I got my frame advantage. I got my guaranteed +8 and hit soul charge. I'm out of there. I also wanted to solidify my lead.
We also just flashed green. Yeah, that's exactly what you were looking for. So it's like definitely relying on the fact that yeah, we actually get a punish here.
So if you look. This is an execution drop on his part.
Yeah.
What he was looking for, there's a glitch there where once they hit the ground, you reset them in this combo with PXSK and it combos into CE.
He had done it a handful of times earlier on in the set, yeah.
He actually only did it one time, and that was when it hit grounded on Oki for him. This is just literally I guess it's a feature of the game now, but it's a bug where you could do that combo in a PXSK.
Yeah, there's a handful of characters that have that sort of thing where, like, the game doesn't even register it as a combo, but there is technically nothing that the opponent can do about it, so it is a combo. Shadows of Setsuka, I guess, is like the biggest example.
Purely a big execution drop on his part that cost him a lot.
Yeah, now that being said, I don't feel entirely too bad for him in this regard. No, I just mean to say in the sense of you had a similar situation in the previous round where you definitely got the appropriate whiff punish, but the game just decided that your 2B was not good enough and you lost the round. So if anything, this is just tit for tat, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
So a lot of meter on Nekoyogi's side, but obviously that doesn't really matter as much as it would other characters or other players. And this is just the act of just trying to, like, deal with this terrible stage positioning here.
Okay, I mean, if you go back and look at the 3B, actually. So I dropped this shit pretty bad. But if you look at the
weren't expecting the 3B to actually connect?
No. Look at the timing of the 3B. I was expecting it to connect, actually. Go on to like the moments right before the 3B and just slow it down because you don't see me use this move very often. You see how he ducked right there, that timing?
So you specifically wanted to use 3B as opposed to like a 6B or a 6-6B like you had been before to beat the Twitch duck.
Yeah, specifically because it tracks counter hit, and also it's just literally a launcher.
Yeah.
Earlier, when I had walked up to him and tried to throw him, and he twitch stuck.
Yeah.
He's starting to become twitchy when I run up to him and I try to throw him. You know.
Yeah, this was the plug that you were trying to put into the situation, because there were the first round, there was the preemptive twitch duck into wall rising B to beat your 2-2A, and then there was the duck on the run up grab that you were just mentioning. So yeah, he definitely is getting very twitch ducky at the very end of this set for sure. And you just wanted to punish this as much as possible. Like 6-6B wasn't enough. You wanted to really try to hit home with this particular read.
I ended up dropping the combo, but like I got the info that he was doing this, and I went for my mid, and it's like it was very important that I got this information and that I was able to land the 3B for me.
Yeah, not to mention you have rounds. Like this is definitely a situation that could come up again. Dead to CE doesn't really matter all that much though. Now we're in a potential Oki situation for death. Man, can you imagine it? Like, what do you think the chances are if you just winged it that it would have worked?
I think everybody said, "Oh, that was gonna hit. Why didn't you do it?"
I can see why you didn't want to do it. It's just it is a thought experiment that I'm just trying to do out. It's like, it's tough because this is obviously not the same situation that we had before when the unblockable connected. This is he has more options here. I just wonder if it's honestly a matter of whether he was just going to errantly do 3B here or not. And I could see either or. What made you decide to do one over the other?
I didn't want to get sidestep CE.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that was basically it. It just freaked me out.
Honestly, I'd be willing to bet, that's a fantastic freeze frame, by the way. I'd be honestly willing to bet that if he had tried to sidestep, he would not have gotten the CE in time. I think he would have been uncomfortable enough to where that wouldn't have happened. If he was going to beat the unblockable, I think he would have just jammed 3B. And that's how he would have done it. But, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So he ends up recovering too quickly. Because what did he actually whiff? It was something very small.
It's 60 speed. It's -2 unblocked, so it has no recovery.
It's that extra, the fact that she recovers by, stepping back that really kind of killed it.
Yeah.
But again, you have the time. You have the rounds. So very similar to the microcosm of the set in and of itself. The fact that you had won the first 2 rounds and it's okay to you have a buffer. It's the same thing with just this own individual game of winning the first 2 rounds and then just sacrificing the other round for a potential kill stroke. Oh, again, tit for tat, right? It's the same situation as before.
Yeah, he was looking for the whiff. But this is 6B. You can not do now.
Nice step back. And here again, you don't need to force it. Now he's dead to a 2A. We don't even need to go for any lows. We don't need to let Xianghua meter come into this. We don't even need to let Xianghua spacing come into this. Yep,
just walk away.
I mean, the last round is just basically what overall happens in this round that makes it the end of the game. It's this. This is definitely the thing that kills it for Nekoyogi. And then he just starts running into stuff very similarly to how he was in the beginning of the set, right?
Yeah, just he was trying to find a way in. He was trying to find a way to start his comeback, right? With the CE with punish, with the counter hit,
especially with this stance mix. This really shows a certain level of desperation. AA on block into the hold A. This frankly is not particularly good. This is not a particularly good setup.
You just step like this every time.
Yeah, it's not a hard step duck to make for any character. So
yeah,
AA on hit maybe, but even then, it's not. It certainly shows a certain level of desperation. And at that point, why not just limit the comeback factor and just go across the screen? I think that this makes there's no other decision that makes more sense than this. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got out of dodge. I'm not fighting him. You will come to me. That is the way I'm going to play you. You take the extreme of not wanting to interact with me, and so when you try to make your turns much more meaningful, like he did at the very end there, it doesn't matter for much,
Yeah, especially when you have that kind of life lead. But yeah, I mean, we definitely see some spaghetti. that happens on both sides. A handful of situations where Soul Calibur just decides to rob the person who is trying to take the initiative, but because it happened equally on both sides, I don't really think one person got lucky over the other. Really, it just seemed like, as you were mentioning, Nekoyogi was just very uncomfortable with dealing with this character. He was very GI heavy, which has its strengths and weaknesses, but overall, the sheer level of desperation that you saw on his face was demonstrated throughout, especially the first, second, and fifth games. I'm kind of surprised at the very end of this that he didn't just try to throw out those 3Bs, which was an adaptation that he was doing before.
I think that he was worried about me stepping in now, because I had been a lot more successful in like creating the distance, you know?
Yeah, it was like this adaptation that he had at the very beginning of the last game, which had to do with just stepping, or twitch ducking into wall rising Bs that you kind of killed with the 3B read. Even though you didn't get any damage out of the 3B read, the fact that it was there was enough for someone like Nekoyogi to feel like he had to change his opinions about what he was doing.
Yeah, it was enough to change his mind. Like, at that point, I felt like I was in his head, you know?
Yeah.
I was rent-free in that bitch. But yeah, that was the winners final set. I think overall, I went into it confidently. I had an idea of like how they play, but overall, I think it comes down to. I think it just comes down to just getting the information that your opponent gives you, and it's like every occasion that he gave me information, I took it. But it wasn't like it was one-sided, because he was doing that too, you know? Yeah,
all of the anti-string stuff that he was doing, the 3Bs, all of that kind of stuff. And then especially how he was dealing with you when your back was to the wall / the ring edge. That's where he was getting a certain amount of mileage too, which is to be expected when Maru is not allowed to use his strongest option, which is moving around. So that kind of makes sense as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we didn't end up talking about during the match before we ended here?
I think there's a lot of strength in having a very simple game plan, and I think that a lot of people overthink like everything when it comes to the game, you know, because they think like, oh, I have this like really fucking good counter hit I-16 move, but it's kind of hard to use, you know, or like I have like this tool and this tool. Like my game plan when I hop into these sets sometimes is just like this. It's just 3 moves or 4, you know. I'm gonna 6B, I'm gonna 2-2A, and I'm gonna throw you. And if you happen to duck, I got a mid, I got 6B, you know. So that's like 4 moves there, and that is how I am kind of revolving my game plan around, and how they interact with 4 moves. And if I can make that work, it makes my life easy, because I get to read my opponent without having to kind of have to do the own mental gymnastics of my character. And I think a lot more people could benefit from A, picking simple characters, or B, trying to simplify their game plan instead of making their own lives harder.
Yeah, you know? Trust me, you are preaching to the choir. As you know, my S-rank runs are based entirely off of that philosophy. I find that there are so many people who frankly allocate a lot of time and attention and resources to learning this game in a way that I don't think is particularly efficient. They will lab instances that happen very uncommonly, where they get to show off and be flashy with an optimal combo that is very hard to do. They will lab that so much. Meanwhile, they don't lab their I-12 block punish. You know, they don't lab the things that happen all the time across the board that would legitimately make things a lot scarier for their opponent. They're interested in what they are doing. They're not interested in what the opponent is doing. And a simplified game plan. There are so many different resources when it comes to fighting games. Life, ring positioning, frames, all of that stuff. But legitimately, attention to detail for the player is a finite resource. You can only focus so much on what you are doing, and you can only focus so much on what they are doing. And if you're allocating resources to doing fancy schmancy stuff, then you are typically taking away from gaining a level of introspection and attention to detail about what the opponent is doing. And when you lose that kind of stuff, I find that you lose the stuff that is most effective in winning the game.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like it is so prevalent in the way that I play that if you notice throughout the set, I didn't really use combos.
No, there's not very... I mean, Soul Calibur is not a particularly combo-heavy character, but, like, how Maru has, like, you know, combos that are basically, like, 2 or 3 hits, and that's kind of it. That's basically
like
all we saw.
Yeah, like, I just like doing moves that hit really hard, and I poke with them or whiff punish, and that's it, you know? I don't have to think about the combo. I don't have to think about dropping a combo. You know what I mean?
Divert all your time and attention into what the opponent is feeling.
Yeah, it's just so important.
Yeah, think about it, guys. To anybody who ended up getting to the end of this video, think about trying to limit... Try going into rank, try going into playing against a friend of yours, and literally only using 5 moves. Typically speaking, most of the characters in this game have the ability to use moves that are so non-committal and that cover so many options that if you utilize only 5 to 7, maybe 10 moves, you can solve most situations in the game. And when you do that, you can focus on things that are a little bit more important than just being fancy and or schmancy when you're doing optimal combos or ring positioning or wall combos or situations that could be solved very plainly by only a handful of moves. Something to think about, something to try and utilize. Thanks very much, Toothpaste, for coming on and talking about what it's like to play against the Japanese players. Thanks very much to everybody who stuck around in Twitch chat, and thanks very much to you who ended up coming to the very end of this YouTube video. Join me next time on the next Eye of a Samurai when my guest will be a different person.